you end up signing with New York Subliners. The unofficial technical date of a year has passed by. Are you re-signing? Have you already re-signed? Can you even talk about it?
I don't know if I can talk about it.
Leaks.
It's okay if you can't, but I have to ask.
Leaks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another Bot Lobby podcast episode. I'm Grandmaster Gojj, as always, joined by the wonderful, amazing co-host, Katie Bedford, the world's Bedford. Katie, how are you doing today? What, Katie, you're drinking. Okay.
Look, I'm great. Okay. Look, you have to have sometimes like the long pause intro, right?
Sure.
It'll make people think that you're important, right? Like clearly she's not just going to take a sip of tea while he's asking her a question, but I am, because sometimes I'm rude. I'm great.
Fair.
Everything's really good. Had a fabulous weekend. Just kind of relaxing. Super excited for our guest this week. I've been a fan of hers for a really long time. And other than that, I'm great. How are you, Gojj?
I'm doing really well. I'm a little sunburned. My face is pretty shiny right now because I've got some serious moisturizer on. You know, we're trying to take care of ourselves. Oh, I did chop the hair quite a bit. It is still long and kind of flowy, but it is not like shoulder length like it was. You know, I realized, not going into too much detail because we got to get to our amazing guest, but I realized I was like, you know what? It goes up into a bun well now, but the bun just doesn't look good on broadcast. I'm on camera way too often. Let me chop it, make it a little bit, you know, more professional.
No, you've experienced the reality of all women who have their hair pulled back on any sort of broadcast. You just look bald.
Yeah, unless, like our guest, you do it correctly. Now, mine wasn't long enough to do it like our guest, so let's just bring her up. We've got an amazing guest today. We are going to bring on the wonderful, the amazing NYSL Swish. Swishem has been a good friend of both Katie and Katie and mine. That might be how you say that. For a while now, we've watched her come up for a very long time, all the way back from the very beginning of her dance. I've seen her just perform at a very, very high level in competitive stance, but even more so recently, grind out that content game. So we're going to get a little bit of behind the scenes look of what she's been up to over the last, couple years now in the content space. Let's bring her in. Swishem, there you are. You're on the main stage. How are you doing today, Swish?
Hello. What's up, everyone?
How are you?
Happy to be here. Big fan of you too.
We appreciate that. Swish, we do something every single time we bring in guests. I didn't really warn you about this on purpose. We do some rapid fire questions, okay? You know, we wanted to have you on the podcast earlier, and it was one of those things where you're like, well, we only have like about 20 minutes, and you're like, no. Let's do a full episode where we can talk about everything under the sun, and I'm excited for that. But we are going to rapid fire some questions at you. I want you to give us your first response, first thing that comes to your head as we go through these. Katie and I are going to jump back and forth on them. I'll start it off. We need your favorite person to stream with / compete with.
That's tough.
I know. First thing that comes to your head. You can split those into 2 questions if you'd like.
I gotta say, for one, I love playing with both of my duos, my co-ed and my female duo, Tom and Allie, Queen Shadows and Intex. But I really enjoy playing with Aiden a lot, just because, like, I don't know, we're just so like goofy and like we love to mess around and like just fry at the same time, and it's just so like it's fun. It's good vibes and it's just a lot of fun. So those are my top 3. I would like have to say.
We've heard that about Aiden a few times now. I think when we had Z-Smith on as well, like a constant reinforcement of the good vibes when you play with him. All right. Favorite streaming moment?
Man, that's also a hard one.
I know.
There's so many things that like come to mind. Streaming moment, as in like something that happened live on stream, or
anything that comes to mind. Can be competitive, can be not, can be random, whatever you want.
Actually, I'd have to say winning Swagg's 25k Doritos Bowl. That like I think was insane, awesome moment. The feeling, the adrenaline, like that last game that we had, like just all the adrenaline like throughout the tournament, like the focus, and then like having, you know, like the Twitch rivals, you know, person come in like, hey Swish, I don't think anyone told you, but you guys won the tournament. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I know it was going to be a close one in that tourney. And it was just like, yeah, it was an awesome moment.
That's a throwback. Well, I'm going to jump a question ahead because you can give us a different answer if you'd like, or you can repeat it. But the next question was your favorite competitive moment from your career. Is it still that one, or is there another that was also in your mind?
No, so it's that one for sure, but I think the Baka Bros LAN, like that has to be like, that was an experience and like just something that will like, I'll never forget. Like that whole weekend or whatever was just from the start to the end. Yeah, like so fun. So it was just so awesome to be in one room with the best in the world and to be able to compete against the best in the world and alongside, you know, Tom. It was awesome. And Vegas,
Yeah.
who doesn't have fun in Vegas?
Sure.
All right. Favorite meta of all time?
DMR. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Hell no. I would have to say, like, I think Amax meta. Was it Amax and Mac 10 or Amax? I can't remember. That and like the FFAR. That was so much fun.
Gojj. We get that a lot.
It was so
now.
fun. Like, I don't know what it is about it. It was just like peak times.
Yeah, I will say the FFAR also had that like versatility where you could use it at every single range, so it was just so smooth. Honestly,
up close, medium,
yeah. I think it was my favorite too. Like, it was just the most versatile weapon you could use ever, and you could still, it wasn't like so broken that like you're getting absolutely twerked on by some random bot with a DMR or two shotting you from 300 meters.
Yes.
So that's I love that answer. Okay, let's see. Let's go to favorite Warzone competitive format currently.
2v2.
Okay.
I would say. Obviously, the state of Warzone isn't really great right now, and 2v2s kind of are up and downhill battle. But I would definitely say 100% 2v2. I would, yeah.
Have we ever gotten a different answer, Gojj, aside from 2v2s?
I think there was no. I think most people say 2v2s. I mean, it makes sense. We've talked about this on the podcast too, Swish, of like this idea of like what's the most competitive, but also what's the most entertaining for a stream. So if like you're a content creator competing and being able to compete and also still talk to chat, like 2v2s make the most sense for that.
100%. Yeah.
So that does make sense for most of all of the competitors that we interview. All right, we have two more.
Least favorite duo to compete against?
Probably Ben and Ken's.
Yeah, fair.
Ben's. Yeah.
Makes sense.
As you just know, like, they're always going to perform, and you just always have to be on your A game when you play them and just try to outfrag them. So yeah, they're just such a good duo. Their chemistry and everything. Definitely say them.
They do win a lot. We had Kins on the last episode, and she was talking about how fun it is to play with Ben. Okay, last question. Hardest loss that you can think of?
I think it was, I know exactly which one. It was the TST or Hitch's Cracked Creator Cup. And me and Tommy got second in that one. And we lost to Huskers and my duo, Queen Shadows. It literally came down to the brim, I think third map. I think we had a hacker reset, and then we went to third map, and then we lost by like 1 kill or something. And it was like the craziest like 1 kill like ever. And I was just like so gutted, but so happy at the same time for Ali, obviously. And it's always hard losing, I'm such a competitive person. Like, no matter the loss, like big or small, like I always take it, as any other loss. So yeah, definitely that one though. Yeah. close ones hurt.
I remember that tournament so like vividly too.
Yeah.
All those Crack Creator Cups were super fun to watch, and also there was this like moment while the draft's going on where you're like, okay, which of the teams that you're like these will win, and like usually there's some front runners, but that one was a ton of fun because your duo and of course the duo that ended up winning were like the two that we were like, oh, watch out for these two. Yeah. Yeah, great answers. Thank you for being willing to be on the spot there for those. It's a fun way to kind of intro who you are for people that maybe don't know you or don't realize how long you've been competing as well, or even just playing and making content. But let's start, Katie. I want to go back all the way to the beginning. Swish, you and I, or Katie and I both know most of your story, but there's probably pieces of it that we don't know. You know, I've seen you from the very beginning of Warzone and Verdansk, like the come up that you've had, and I want to talk about that. But let's go to the very beginning of what drew you to Warzone in particular. Maybe than other BRs, or was Warzone your first kind of streaming title, or did you do stuff before that? Kind of give us that walkthrough.
So MW was my first COD. I remember. So I'm a retired ex-college basketball player. I played sports my whole life, soccer, basketball, softball, volleyball, track, every sport. And then when it came to high school, you know, I couldn't play all the same sports, you know, the seasons overlap and stuff. So I had to go one direction. So I went with basketball. I worked really hard for a scholarship, and I knew like I was set on it since I was like in 8th grade. Like that's what I wanted. You know, it ended up happening. I went off to college in Iowa, and I went, I think it's like a full day's drive or more from where I live in Texas. And it was the first time I was away from home and away from my family and stuff. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to go away from home and experience, you know, college life and responsibilities and grow up, you know. And when I got there, it wasn't what, you know, I expected. You know, I had a really rough 2 years that I was there. I went through a really dark depression, and gaming was like the outlet for that. Like I can't tell you all the times that my mom was so pissed at me that I was up late, like playing, I don't even know what on my Xbox, you know, like it wasn't Call of Duty. I was playing like Dead by Daylight and Apex. I played Apex a lot, like at the start. I was just a casual player, but and then MW comes out, and I'm just like, whoa, like this is the first COD I get to play. Like I didn't ever have time for games, you know, before. So, you know, I was in my dorm room. I was playing MW. I would play a lot of like S&D and like pubs and stuff. And that kind of like itched my like competitive side. You know, basketball was kind of going to crap. I didn't get along with my team. Well, my teammates didn't get along with me, I guess. I was kind of like the oddball.
Sure.
I was so far away from home. Everybody was like 5 or 10 minutes away from, you know, their hometown over there, and they all kind of knew each other since they were little. So it was kind of hard, you know, like getting into, you know, a new team, new coaches, new everything. I didn't get along with my roommate. I had to move out and live alone in my dorm, being homesick, like everything just like came into play. And then I had injuries and stuff. So like all that just like translated to me being in my room every night and all day, like outside of practice and class and just playing video games. So if you would have told me I would be here, you know, like
right.
I would have told you you are crazy, because my goals were, you know, finish school, go to get my master's afterwards, you know, graduate the first in my family as a college athlete and stuff. But, you know, life took another turn and COVID happened. And then I got sent back home. And obviously I brought my Xbox with me, and I started playing a lot more because, you know, like we're inside during, you know, COVID and everything. And then I don't know what it was, but I think, you know, the Xbox like has like a feature where you can like go live. And I didn't know what the heck it was, but I would just click it, like just to click it, because And then there was like a little icon on my screen where it says like live recording, like, and it would have like 1 or 2 people, like the number there. And I was like, oh my God, I have like 2 people watching me right now playing, you know, like Dead by Daylight. And then slowly, you know, I started like looking up Twitch, and then I see this whole world of like streamers and content creators and like communities, and I started, you know, like watching streams and people like Nickmercs. I know I watched like Dakota's Fortnite streams, Tim the Tatman, Shroud, and like it was just crazy to see like that there's so much more to just gaming, you know, like being a casual gamer that I was.
Right.
So like I said, I got sent home, you know, with COVID, and I picked up streaming, and then I was streaming, you know, like S&D. I got into like the game battles and CMG tournaments and stuff. And that was just kind of like everything that I had, all my passion and stuff for competing like with basketball and stuff kind of like transferred over, because I wasn't having a good time, and you know that kind of like road kind of ended because of COVID. So that kind of opened up like the door, and honestly I thought I was just gonna, you know, play, you know, stream here and there, you know, 1-2 viewers, no webcam, you know, no official mic or PC, you know. I thought I was just gonna, you know, have some fun, you know, while I'm you know, down and depressed, you know. And then I ended up getting my first PC, I think a little after COVID happened. And then I started streaming and stuff, and I was, you know, intertwined with some communities, and I started meeting a lot of people. And I think that was when like I played with Nickmercs. I can't remember like the timeline, but I know it was like at the start, you know, like when I was streaming and stuff. I already had like a little community. I had, you know, like 5-10 viewers, you know, I was really proud of, you know, like that was huge for me. Like every time the number would spike up to like 7 or 8, I would freak out like, Mom, I've got 7 people watching me right now. Like what? And then I started, you know, getting noticed and stuff. And I didn't play Warzone right away. I think I actually didn't like Warzone when MW came out. I didn't like the whole like BR of Call of Duty at the time. I was so stuck on like, no, I'm gonna play S&D. So I think I got into Warzone like season 2 or 3. And I started playing, and I had no idea how to play, you know, Call of Duty BR, or like what the hell to even shoot at, or you know, like I didn't know a KD ratio existed, or like what a KD ratio was. I was obviously really bad at the start, but obviously like the time that I had, you know, at home and stuff, I just grinded it out. I got to network with a lot of the big names really early on somehow, and I just fell in love with Warzone and competing, and it was just crazy how it all happened. Honestly, I don't even know how it happened, but
well, I wonder then what. So you're kind of telling this story, right, of how you got here. Was there, and you're saying you're networking, right? You get in with a lot of these people early, and that can be so crucial. Was there a point? Was there a point in all of this that you felt jump started your Warzone career?
Definitely networking is huge in, you know, like the streaming and content world. You definitely need to get out there and talk to people and whatever. But I would say yeah, because I mean, when I played with Nickmercs, I wasn't streaming. I wasn't like, you know, like posting to YouTube. I wasn't like, you know, trying to get people to come to my stream, you know, because of him, or, you know, like, I think definitely just even playing with him did bring like traction, and like I have like some of my best friends like Nico, a lot of my community that I, you know, have now still like since then. Definitely I think that helped me a little bit. And then I don't know, I would play like 10 hours a day, and I was on literally all day, like every single day, even on console days. So little by little, I guess, like I don't know. Definitely though, yes. Like I think that it did help Jumpstart because I don't know where I would be, you know.
Right. You know, looking back on your history and what you were able to do, I know we've got some people in the chat that have been around since the beginning as well. You know, we know Brave really well, and he was saying that one of the first or second ever YouTube videos he did was you and playing with Nickmercs and stuff like that. But the first thing that I remember, like I think the layman, if you will, the Warzone community thinks of when they think of you from the very beginning was kind of some of the time that some of the momentum that you gathered up with Swagg, and when Swagg did a lot of like shout outs and did some YouTube content with you. So talk to me a little bit about what that was like when Swagg kind of, you know, the networking is huge, and we always talk about it from the content creator space of like, hey, we want to network and play with other people, but it's not the self promo in those. It's when the creators say, hey, I want to like make content with this person, and Swagg did that with you. So talk to me a little bit about what that was like.
I'm gonna keep it a buck.
Please do, as honest as possible.
I remember like the first time like he messaged me and I was like, wait, is this like a troll account? Like there's just no way. Like he just messaged me right now asking, you know, to make a YouTube video. Like I honestly was never expecting it or like, you know, looking for it, but like when he did, I had been, you know, obviously watching Swagg for a long time. And when he messaged me to make a YouTube video, I was like, what? Like, did you send this to the wrong person? Like, are you sure you got the right person? Like, I was just like, I don't know. That was definitely like, honestly, a crazy moment too, because when you think about it, like, I don't know, like that, he actually like has done a lot for me, and I'm very thankful for Swagg. He is just a down-to-earth person. Like I love his content, like what he does for his people, like for his community and everything. So being able to make that, like, I still remember the day like vividly. Like we were hopping into duos and it was like the AUG meta, and we were just running around talking at the same time. You know, we both dropped to like double 20+ kill games, and it was a lot of fun. So I will never forget that moment though, like when he messaged me, because I would literally freaked out, and I went and ran it and told my mom, like, look at this, like I have a message from Swagg and he wants to play with me. Like, what?
That's so
Can
cool.
you slap me?
I will say too, you know, we're talking about this networking and it is super important, but it's not as simple as reaching out to people, right, and saying, hey,
yes,
can we do this, can we play together or anything like that. It's much more than that. It comes from a place of they recognize you being real, and they recognize that you're a grinder.
Yes.
I mean, you know, I'll give you the credit if you're not going to give it to yourself. You grinded the crap out of this game, and you have gotten so much better at the game, and really have showcased why you're kind of earned the right to be where you are currently. And yes, you worked with some of these large creators along the way, which certainly can jumpstart careers, but it was because of your grind that was even possible. So I wanted to say that before we move forward.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think anyone realizes how many hours I actually put into like Verdansk, and like how I even got here, you know, like I didn't just get it handed to me, obviously. Like there was a lot of things, you know, that came into play and that went on. So I'm definitely thankful for people like Swagg and Nick and even Jowo. I think I remember Jowo invited me to a tournament as well, like early on before Swagg asked me to play, and that was like also one of the biggest like moments that I remember. Like, I can't believe I'm playing with Jowo, like movement king.
Yeah, sure.
You know, like you know, like just looking up, you know, to these like creators that I call friends now, you know, like when I first started with, it's just it makes me feel really thankful and blessed and grateful and everything, because you know, I'm just glad, you know, like people don't get the wrong idea of me, you know, like people actually see me through, and that's all I can ask for, you know, and that's all I can do, you know, just be me. And you know, if you fuck with me, you do. If you don't, well, you know.
100%.
But definitely it's a grind, and it has been. So I'm just thankful for it. I'm thankful for my competitive background too, because like without that, you know, I wouldn't be putting in the hours I do, or you know, where I am now without it.
Well, and we hear that so frequently, not just in Call of Duty, but in a lot of other esports. So many competitors come from a competitive sports background, and whether it was injuries or other circumstances, they channel that same competitive drive and motivation into a game. And that happens a lot in Call of Duty all the time as well. So I'm not surprised to kind of see that sentiment. But all right, Swagg's hitting you up, Jowo's hitting you up, you're doing your thing, you're finding your groove, and you have all this momentum behind you. At this moment in time, you are seeing people like Jesse Cooks, Smixy, Queen, all getting picked up by orgs. There's a lot of people getting snapped up. And then you start having conversations and you end up signing with New York Subliners. And I remember that announcement. It was a really exciting time. And I think, are you just quite there on the 1 year yet?
Legally, yes.
Okay.
Officially, but not officially, yes.
What was that like when? And I know Smixy's in chat. What was it like for you as you're having this momentum to see other people getting picked up and getting that moment where you realize you two are on the path toward working with an org?
Honestly, it was a time to be alive. Like, those Verdansk like peak times, like where we're all grinding. Like I remember me, Ali, and Smixy would play like the trios, like kill races, like the female ones, and we would absolutely fry out. And like we were like one of the top trios, you know, if not one of the best, you know, in Verdansk, you know. And it was just fun to see, you know, like one by one, like Smixy got picked up by Rocker, and then you know, who was that? I remember that was just.
It was Jesse with Minnesota, or with Florida, and then I think, was it Smixy and then Queen on Florida as well? Or I can't remember.
I don't know how it went, but I remember seeing, you know, like Jesse, Smixy, Kaylee joined FaZe, you know, like there was so much going on, and it was just like motivation, and like it was just like I was so happy to see that like girls were actually getting, you know, like the recognition that people were, you know, like these orgs were picking them up and, you know, bringing them on, and for everyone to see, you know, like they've got skill, and, you know, like, you know, they have more than just their skill, like their talent, their, you know, their personalities, like the different personalities in the women's scene. Like it was just like, I just remember that time. It was just peak moment of, you know, like everyone's grinding, everyone's trying to work for, you know, their own. And definitely I knew that it was in the future, like it was gonna come eventually. You know, I had to just grind it out. Obviously, like I haven't been around as long as a lot of these players have, and I understand that. And so I get if I wasn't gonna, you know, get on an org, you know, anytime soon. You know, if it wasn't anytime soon, like it was gonna happen, you know, later down the road. But when I was in talks with a couple different teams and stuff during that time, and I was in talks with obviously New York, I just fell in love with like who they are, like what they stood for, like what they do for their community. Obviously, they had just signed Aiden, and let me tell you, I was the biggest fan of Aiden before, you know, like I mean, I was ever friends with him. I remember just like being a little chatter in his chat, you know, watching his streams, you know. So just like, yeah, just New York has been awesome, and just the home feeling that I was looking for was really, really important in my decision making and what they do for, you know, their creators, for their comp players, for all that. And then obviously visiting New York was a whole different thing. Yeah, it was crazy, honestly.
I know we were talking a little bit before the broadcast about how you've really been excited to work with them because of like the content side in particular, right? Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, yes, I want to hear like the best parts, maybe the hardest parts even of working with an org and what that means for you and the way you do content. But talk to me about that process. Like, what are those best parts that are really getting you excited about content creation in particular outside of competition?
Honestly, So recently, I know I haven't been like competing too much.
There's been a lot going on, to be fair.
Yeah. I'm trying to, play here and there because obviously, like, I can't stray away completely from, the competitive side. But honestly, right now, like, the focus is, growing the longevity of my brand and my stream. And I think that's what's really important. And I think that's what some of these competitive players don't realize and don't take into, consideration, because when all this, like, say if Warzone just, it probably won't, but say Warzone's not it, or competing isn't it, down the road, it doesn't work out, like, what are you gonna do? What do you have now? And I personally, me, like, my thing is, like, I want to build like a community and like a fan base that, like, we're all family, and that, like, no matter what game I'm playing, like, my community is always going to be there. Whatever, whoever people I support, they're going to support. Like, I don't want people just coming in here, checking out like the competitive, we're gone, all right, and then so forth. I want to create content that people will, like me, how I was, like, I would watch people's content because, like, that was my safe space, where those creators, like, those were the streams that I went to, when I was, like, not having a good day, or I wanted, to laugh, or, to smile, or to see other people in the chat that I knew. So we have some ideas, like, with New York coming up. I know we're going to do some content at the major in a few days. Yeah, and I'm so excited for that. I know we're going to do, I'm personally wanting to do some, like, IRL vlogs and stuff, because I think that would be really cool to incorporate into, like, my channels and stuff, because I know, like, making that, like, connection with your viewers and, like, like, obviously the people that you already have in your community, just showing them, kind of like what we go through, or like the day in the life of M or something, or what goes on at these events, stuff like that. So IRL vlogs definitely. And I know we're playing some stuff with, like, Aiden there at the event, and just with, like, the fans that are gonna be there. So I'm excited for that. I've been on the content grind for, I think, a little over a month. I definitely hate myself for not getting on it,
Everyone says that. Yep. Everyone says that.
I 100%, kick myself in the butt, because it's just so important. Like, it really is. And, like, it's definitely a grind, and I don't think a lot of people, will want to, like, stick through it. But, once you get the ball rolling on the content, and, you're firing on all cylinders, and you're, competing here and there, you're making content, you're, doing this and that, like, you get into that groove, and it's like you're sailing, like, and obviously, like, your brand and your community is most important, over to, well, at least to me, like, to competing and stuff. Obviously, I love competing, and I will still compete, but, like, I want to make sure that, I have that community, and I built that kind of, like, family feeling, wherever I go. So
yeah.
Well, we know how important that can be, right? Especially when we talk about the grind and how important the grind is, but that can very much so go way too far in the other direction. And when you have that Twitch community, that community, as you said, that you're building around yourself through your content, through your streams, through your competing, whatever it may be, those people, I think folks who don't stream don't always realize how that community can turn your day around. Maybe you're having a bad day, and an hour later you're goofing around on chat and you're all laughing and cracking up, and your whole day gets better because of that. I think people oftentimes can just underestimate the impact of how vital that family that you build is. But I want to go back to something that you mentioned that I think is really interesting. When you were talking about getting picked up by subliners, you were being courted, if you will. You said it was a time to be alive, and we've talked about it a lot on the podcast. People who haven't been picked up yet, there's been a lull in teams picking people up for a while now. We know that there's things happening in the background, but is there anyone in particular that comes to mind that you want to experience what you did, being alive, getting that pickup, seeing that org announcement? Is there anyone that you say that person deserves it, that person should be picked up?
There's a lot of people, like, the
Get the list.
community's full of, you know, underrated, you know, unrecognized, you know, just good people, and then cracked, you know, players that deserve, you know, that home on an org. And obviously, like, you can bring up Smith, you can bring up, you know, like Ken's, you can bring up like so many people. And it's like, when is it coming? You know, like, that's always like the tough part. Like, you know, when you're unsigned and you're grinding and like you're like, okay, well, I want a home. You know, who's gonna pick me up? Like, what's gonna happen? The unknown is always, you know, either scary or exciting. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what people are doing. Like, what are these orgs? Like, what's going on? You know,
Anyone wants to put on a tournament and sign some new folks, you know? Let us all know.
Yeah. I honestly don't know what's going on. Definitely there should have been way more
Fortune's
people
Key,
getting
please.
Yeah.
Side note, like, can we make that happen? Thank you. I don't know if anyone's listening. Let us know.
Hello, any listeners out there?
All right. So you mentioned some names. Ken's is a great one. As we said, we had her on last episode, and we talked a lot about that. But for you said the unofficial technical date of a year has passed by. Are you re-signing? Have you already re-signed? Can you even talk about it?
I don't know if I can talk about it.
Leaks.
It's okay if you can't, but I have to ask.
Leaks.
Listen, I love New York. My heart is in New York. There's definitely other orgs that are also home, you know, related, but I love New York. I don't think I want to go anywhere for a little while. I think what we're building there is good. I think as soon as we get on, like, you know, our levels of, you know, what we're gonna do, what we want to do, and take those ideas and run with them, I think we'll be good. But I don't see any other teams, you know, doing what they're doing, you know, for at least for our side on our team.
Sure.
Like, I don't see too many like orgs that are doing, you know, what they need for their players or for their content creators. So I think that's just me. Like, if I'm gonna be somewhere, I don't care, like, if it's Optic, if they're not giving that, you know, like, home feeling, that like support system, like, well, all right, you lost me, you know.
Sure. Yeah, no,
that makes sense.
This
Quality
support makes
over
sense.
Yeah.
So super cool. Well, you can keep an eye out for the re-signing if that is down the road. You know, no leaks from Swish today, but a great answer regardless. Okay, this has been really, really cool, Swish. We've got a chance to kind of hear your story, your come up, you know, how it happened, and it's honestly been your grind that has been a part of that. There is always some small negative things that come up in anything in life, but in particular in Warzone community, we've seen a lot of this interesting back and forth on how do you treat other people as people while also understanding that everybody's on their own grind. And so one of the things that we were going to bring up here towards the end of having you on is this idea of like interacting with some of these people that maybe aren't the most gracious of people or what have you. And we're not trying to ask for names or stir the pot, but more so, how do you deal with egos? Like, egos are a huge piece of any influencer side content, whether it's modeling to you know, professional sports to, of course, esports. And we all have egos to some degree because we have put in the effort and the grind, and we have felt like we have earned what we have. And so we're protective of that. But what do you think about, like, kind of the community in general of Warzone, egos in general, and how that influences, like, how you interact with people?
It's hard, you know, interacting with some people, or like knowing who to interact with, because obviously some people are gonna be more like protective of, you know, their side, and they don't want to let anyone in, they don't want to, you know, like so it's kind of hard, you know, dictating, you know, like the real people in the community and the people that are just here for just their benefit, what they're gonna get, you know, no one else. it's tough. You could definitely see it here and there from some people. And I just try to stay away, from those people. I can tell when someone is genuine or like their egos are out the door, when I talk to them or have like a first conversation with them. But it's tough. I gotta say it is hard. It's hard, like I said, letting people in your circle, knowing who to trust. Because I mean, it's the internet, and we're not face to face in this business. You don't know who has what intentions or how big their ego really is, or what they're planning. So I don't know. It's I kind of just try to mind my business. I can totally tell, just by their actions, how they talk, what they do. Definitely stay away from that person, or
like they're not minding their business.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. Like you got it. Do you? I'll be over here, in my corner. But it's definitely tough. Definitely tough, because there's just.
I think something when you first come into a community, right? Everything's shiny and new and sparkly and pretty, and you're new and everyone wants to meet the new person and everything's great. And then the longer you're there, and this happens with anything in life, some of the facade crumbles off a little bit, right? And you start to see some of the things that aren't so sparkly and shiny and new and exciting. So you're at that point, right? You are a staple in the community. You've made your mark. You're doing exceptionally well for yourself, and you've had those highs and lows of maybe finding out who you're going to be close to, who you're not, whatever. Getting the landscape of what competitive Warzone entails. Do you have any advice to those hopeful competitive players who are following in your footsteps?
Just be you. Like I said, if they're gonna, like you for who you are, like, be you. Don't try to, put on this other face just because you want to move your way up, or just because you want to get in that circle, or you want to compete. Like, just be you, and you will attract the right people. You are who you attract. So that's all I can say. Just be you and grind, and, try to mind your business and stay in your lane, and be humble, be kind, and yeah.
Great advice. I love that advice. That's the best advice we've probably ever heard. Be humble and kind, man. And Swish, you certainly embody that. You are a very, very humble person. The way you've been answering these questions has been like, these things happened and they're great, but it was truly your grind that got you there. And so, like I was saying before, we all have a bit of an ego when it comes to, hey, I've earned this, right? But how do you kind of treat other people that have also earned their territory is a huge piece to it. So yes. Speaking of that, to kind of finish off this conversation, and we'll move to our last topic, just in a general sense, I've done it in the past, and I think a caster doing it is a little bit different than players doing it. But with egos comes this idea of who is the best, who is not the best. And there's this big kind of meta that goes ebbs and flows like waves throughout the community of tier lists in a general sense. And again, I've done it a ton. I used to do tier lists all the time, and then I started getting railed for it, and so I said, okay, maybe I'll slow it down a little bit. I could probably do them more now, and people wouldn't like give me death threats because I'm a little bit more of a staple in the community now than I was back then. But what's your general take on tier lists? This is kind of like a interesting topic. Nothing in particular or specific, but just generally, what do you think of tier lists, players?
Tier lists are just one's opinions or a few, and it does not dictate or say exactly who you are, what you are, how you play. It is someone's opinion, and that should not matter at the end of the day. If you truly know yourself, you truly know your potential, you truly know what you stand for and how you grind. And I don't think anyone else's opinion should try to tackle that down or get into your head, because at the end of the day, everyone just wants to be at the top, and some people don't want to grind, some people want to grind. just do you, like I said, and stay out of it. That's it. Just
Sure.
screw them. Like who cares?
Yes.
I have your advice here on the podcast and your opinions on tier list here on the podcast reflect everything that you say on Twitter as well. So you truly are you, no matter where you are, whether it's competing content on a podcast or just on the Twitter timeline. It is definitely the resounding kind of sign of Swish is, hey, stay in your lane, do your thing, be you, and do your grind, and kind of keep those close to you that kind of you connect
matter.
with and that matter. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So really appreciate having you on. This has been super insightful, and I think your advice is something that I would love to kind of clip and take out and say, hey, if you're ever wondering how to make it in the scene, Swish is telling you right here, be you. Certainly put in the time, but don't try to bend over backwards to be somebody you're not.
Yes.
Really, really cool stuff. Well, final question to kind of send you off. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Plans for the future. Just give me a little bit about what's Swish's next steps. I know it's content. We've already talked about it. Give me a little bit more behind the scenes of where you're going from here.
Honestly, I am in a MW2 waiting room.
Yeah.
In my mind, in my body, and like my plan right now is just, I don't want to play too many tournaments right now. Obviously I'll play like the invitationals, the ones that really matter, try to stray away from the Twitter tournaments and all that, but I just want to focus again like on content, the longevity of my brand, my stream, my community, continue building that family feeling, and just doing me. Just focus on working on myself, the ins and outs, as a person, as a player, as a content creator. And obviously I have a lot to learn. I'm still fairly new to all this. Definitely haven't been around that long to know a lot. But I still know a lot. But there's still a lot there's always room for improvement. That was always my thing for basketball. And I had really amazing mentors, and I have amazing parents and family that, has kind of stapled those morals and values that'll never, go away. But definitely just got to work on myself, work on, being a better player, a better person, a better friend, all that. And that's it. Just growth, improvement, and yeah.
Love it.
Wise words.
Absolutely wise words. Well, Swish, everybody knows you that's listening probably, but I'm going to give you a chance. Go ahead and shout out your socials. You have been an absolute pleasure to have on. I'm going to make sure everybody at home, whether you're watching this live or on the VOD content over there on YouTube, make sure you like that and comment on it of how much you love Swish or what you would love to ask her if you had her on your own podcast, what have you. Where can people find you, Swish? All of the different socials. Shout them out.
Katie Bedford on all socials. I'm joking.
My girl.
It's just Swishem on Twitter. I'm live on Twitch every day at twitch.tv/Swishem. Swishem on YouTube. Swishem_ on TikTok.
Let's go.
Couldn't get the OG. And yeah, that's it. You know where to find me.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Well, I know you're live all the time. I know you're probably about to go stream for another 9-10 hours. I don't know what's going on and leading up until NYSL. So good luck with all of that. We wish you the best.
Fun.
Yeah, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Oh, I had a lot of fun. Again, I love these podcasts and being able to, it's rare when, like you get to actually talk to somebody and like, go into detail about things and get to like actually know who they are and stuff. So thanks for taking the time with me and talking to me and stuff. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And I just want to say, if you need any reinforcement, the vlog idea at the major, I think you should definitely try and execute on that if you can. I know I saw some people in chat. I feel the same way too. Would love to see the kind of content you can make with it.
Sounds good. I will get on it.
Okay, sweet. Good luck and have a great rest of your stream.
Thank you guys.
All
Bye.
right, see ya. All right.
Great. Swish
She
is
was
great. I
awesome.
love having her on.
She
That was awesome.
she told us, she was like, "Hey, be prepared. I'm going to talk a lot," and it was like perfect, right? She was able to tell her story, and it was flawless. Really
I'd rather
enjoyed
talk
having
a
her on.
lot than talk a little.
Sure. Yeah. No. Totally
Breaking it
fair.
up.
Makes our job super easy. Well, Katie,
Mm-hmm.
this is the time of our episode where we get to shout out the way we're able to do this. Our sponsor, Kolosseum. It is time for the stat chat. If you guys didn't know, Katie and I, the Bot Lobby podcast, is sponsored by Kolosseum! Exclamation point sponsor, or if you want to, type a longer word, exclamation point Kolosseum, will pull up who they are in the chat. And they have been amazing because these stat chats have been a lot of fun. We have an opportunity to talk through some really cool stats. Let me pull this up for us to go ahead and start talking through.
Some of these are great, Gojj. I'm taking a peek right now. Some of them are really impressive.
They're fantastic. All right, this should bring us up. Let's go to here. Close. We were almost there, getting all set up. I just need to, have your face on the screen, and then we'll be good.
Oh my God. No, I look normal now because you cut off my giant 5 heads. This actually works out really well.
Boom. There you go. We're locked and loaded every single time, I swear. There it is. You can see the link in the chat, and I'll tell you a little bit more about who Kolosseum is. Daily fantasy for Warzone pubs. Really, really cool. But they give us these awesome graphics where we get to talk through some different stats, which is a blast. So, Katie, let's look at the top streamers from the last week. This is all kind of cumulative from the last week of data that they are able to pull from pubs. And looking at this list, some of these kind of jump out at you. It looks like good to see Sabas on here with Jared FPS, and I think it's Zydo. 10 Fortunes Keep wins in a row. Pretty solid. Any of these other ones kind of jump out to you?
I mean, so you look at it, I think the streaks are always really impressive to me, but you got to look at the average placements that also stick out. Of average placement of second. I think on another stat chat previously with Kolosseum, we had someone whose average placement was like was it Biffle or someone? It was like their average placement was like 1.3.
Yeah,
it was like their average placement was first place.
Yeah, it was basically first place because they're just winning all the time. And that is something I have been noticing about Fortune's Keep in particular, is that there are some pretty massive win streaks that people can go on. And I know there's been a lot of grinding of the new map because, hey, content is content. Let's go to the next one on here. Let's see if this works. Boom. Amazing. So these are, I believe these are wait a minute. Nope. Let me double check what this is, because I think it is. You have the stat on there, 76. I think this is
victories. It's victories. Yeah.
What? I thought that's what it was, but there's Zydo has 89 wins this week on Fortune's Keep. Yeah. My gosh, 76 on Caldera is maybe more impressive. Old Bonk up to his old tricks.
Yeah, well, that's what I was like, wait, because I agreed with you. I was like, that's a lot of wins, bro. 76? You're busy just crushing everyone. Like, I win a decent enough amount when I actually play, but like, not like that. Not like that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, not like, yeah, just another win. Just throw one more coin in the bucket. Like, excuse me, 76 in a week? Like, how many is that a day?
I guess that you're looking, I mean, if it's a week, so that's over 10 a day. You're looking at almost 11 a day, basically 11 wins per day. I guess if you're streaming 10 hours a day, every day, that's like an hour. You basically can win every other game you play. I know Bonk is a win streak. No, it is outrageous. I think Bonk is one of those. I've known him through a number of different titles, but Warzone in particular, he goes for those win streaks. Can play conservative when he needs to, and can play aggressive when he needs to. So cool to see him in the Rebirth. 24 for Swagg, still fantastic. 89 for Fortune's Keep is obscene. Let's keep rocking and rolling and see what else they've got. Most kills throughout the week. Kind of crazy to compare these two. 52 for Rated and 50 on Fortune's Keep for Huskers. Now, I don't know, because I think I just saw an updated stat from Z-Smith. They did introduce Fortune's Keep Extreme earlier. I think it was late last week or something like that, where the player count was increased quite dramatically. So I'd be wondering to know if this was on Extreme or if this was basic Fortune's Keep. Regardless, still an insane number, and the fact that it's almost the exact same as Caldera means they were farming on Fortune's Keep with that resurgence.
Yeah, and I've actually seen, I think last night or a day ago or something, like some world record something with like Rated, Scummin, maybe someone else. It was like a trio something or other. So they Rated and this group of competitive players have been grinding out a lot of these high kill games, and I'm not surprised to see something like a 52, 50s on both sides. Have we seen anyone get? Can you even get up into the 60s?
On Fortune's, I think on Extreme it's possible now, because I think
have
it is
we seen
60.
anyone do that yet?
No, I don't think so. Well, Extreme just dropped, so it would be in this stat line. I know Smith, I think, just dropped like a record or something like that. I'm gonna look at his tweets really fast. Looks like, yeah, he just hit a 60 on Fortune's Keep literally 9 hours ago. 9 hours ago.
Okay, I was gonna say, because that seems so like, look at that. He almost had 23,000 damage.
Yeah, that's obscene. That literally just happened like 9 hours ago on the Extreme game mode. So I know a lot of people are excited about Extreme, and it's seemingly having a lot of fun on that. All right, last one to pull up on screen. So if you didn't know, this was the fun stat. Kolosseum is actually a fantasy sports, kind of general esports, but specifically for Warzone fantasy sports website, where there's like daily contests where you can win money every single day by picking your favorite Warzone squad, and you've got like a budget that you spend. You have an amount of like fake money inside the site where you buy your team. It's really, really cool, but you win real money. It's like $150 a week at least on all of these contests. You can go check it out right now, ! Sponsor. But this is like the ultimate squad for the week. These are the people that put up the most points. Huskers makes a lot of sense up there at 810. You see Z-Smith at 770. I think he's been grinding Fortune's Keep. That's probably why. Rated, who had the most kills in Caldera, makes sense at 720. Almond 705. You always see him up there. Scummin 697, 694 for FIFA kill. Big people we are missing from the last couple weeks of this, by the way. Biffle's not on this list. Metaphor is almost always on this list because that dude grinds, and Super Evan's not on this list this time around. I don't think Super Evan was playing as much this week. And then I also know there was a few little shadow bans still eking around that then were able to be reversed. That could have kind of ruined some of these stat lines for those players. And it's always fun seeing what actually ends up happening from the fantasy points side, because Katie, I know the points are based on kills, they're based on how many times you die, they're based on how many wins you get. Like, takes all of those into account, just like any other fantasy sports does, and puts together these point totals. So really, really cool stuff. Any other stat lines that they provided us behind the scenes, not on these graphics, that you wanted to shout out?
I know there was a highest damage stat. I think somewhere there was around 20k or so. That was pretty impressive. I assume Z-Smiths will get updated into that next week around with that 23k. But just I think the overall trend of just consistent dominance, right, is always really impressive to me, because you can have pop-off games, but when you consistently see the same players just blowing it out of the water, it always just makes me chuckle when you see the the budget YouTubes of found out this person's cheating. Like, no, you just suck, and you're just upset that they are that good. So shout out to them for consistently being this dominant.
No, absolutely. The one stat I wanted to shout out that they provided us, the most gulag losses in the last week was Juki's, by the way, at 133. I'm calling it out 100%. He has the most gulag losses. He has 115 gulag losses, the most out of anyone in the game over the last week. However, he also has the most gulag wins over the last week with 133 or something like that. So regardless, man's positive, still doing well, but has the most wins and losses. He's probably putting in the most time over this last week on his main account, which is what they track. So, hey, if you want to get more from Warzone streaming, all you need to do is enter into Kolosseum's free Fantasy Warzone contest and win when your favorite streamers win. So you can build your dream squad now at Kolosseum.com. Oh, sorry. I pulled up my stats over this to do the ad read, and I totally covered up Katie. Why didn't you say something? I thought
it was intentional.
No. I put it under the camera because it's easier to like read it and kind of still look at the camera. I'm not covering up your face to do an ad read. That's insane.
So here's the thing. We've worked together for so long that, like, I wasn't even FaZe. I assumed this was all part of the plan. So I was just going with it. Like, that was a trust fall. It was an unintentional trust fall, and it was okay.
Well, I
it was
appreciate
okay.
it. I'm gonna redo it. This is for everybody at home. Maybe our editor will do a little extra, little middle editing to keep Katie's face on the screen, because the only reason people even watch this screen is because Katie's here to give amazing info. So let's keep her on the screen.
I wasn't gonna say it, but you're not wrong.
No, 100%. The big thing, I already told you this, but you can win your favorite streamers win by entering in to Kolosseum.co. Kolosseum.co is where you can enter into those fantasy contests. The big thing to remember is you could use promo code BOTLOBBY, all one word. I don't think caps matters. All one word to get a little extra cash to enter into some of these contests. Some of them are free. Some of them you can enter in $5 and they're an increased price pool, but they have up to $150 that you can win every single week. I gotta say too, I saw Lamb Chop in the chat, and then one of my mods, actually Flowers, both entered on last week's episode and both won that week because of the data that we were putting out and their own intuition, because they watch a lot of Warzone. So again, go check out Kolosseum. They're amazing. They're the reason we're able to continue to do this podcast. They support us and make us have really cool opportunities to bring on amazing guests. So there you go. Thank you guys for making that happen. Now, Katie, it's time, now that I'm no longer covering up your face, it is time to do a little Shitter's Digest action. And we've got our newspaper in front of us. We've been reading through the Twitter timeline, and there's some things we need to discuss. One of them was already mentioned before, but what do we have this week? What was the newspaper? What was the big headline this week that we need to chat about?
So we had some new last-minute additions. Shout out to the timeline. They were slotted into the newspaper right before printing. But I'm gonna kind of just go in order for right now. But we had an interesting discussion crop up about wager and paying your debts, in particular with wagers, that we'll, I'm sure, get into here in a moment. There was an updated women's tier list. We touched on tier lists a bit with Swish earlier, but there was an updated tier list that just came out, which was interesting to look over. Also the big question, and I mean, who knows? Maybe the solution, the conclusion has happened. If you get shadow banned, obviously you're a cheater, right, Gojj? Like, obviously, obviously, if you're shadow banned, you are a cheater. We saw some discussions about the correlations there, and somehow shadow bans being an implication of that. And then, of course, an interesting tweet we saw from Hex about a Warzone amateur tournament for 5K, and the massive response that got within a very tournament-starved Warzone environment.
There was a lot of topics and a lot of great ones. So let's start at the top. I know this has always been a discussion, but it was a fairly lively discussion, in particular late last week. Smixy tweeted about it in particular. I know she was in the podcast earlier. This idea of the wager culture and people not paying their debts. Let's talk about it for a moment, Katie, because, when I understand, Warzone tournaments are far and few between at this point. People are starved for content. The wager community thrives. I mean, there was a wager tournament that put up, a nearly 10K prize pool because people like to gamble. They were re-spinning a wheel to get a new teammate, and they had to pay for that wheel spin every single time. And the prize pool went.
So that's not right.
Katie, the prize pool went from, it was with Rated and Miss Know-It-All. Prize pool went from like 3K to legitimately $10,000 because people kept respinning to gamble for a better teammate.
No, they kept getting people in there like,
nah.
no.
But
that's savage, but I like it. I'm here for it.
So the buy-in tournaments is one thing, but the wagers where you're directly wagering one other duo or one other person and running these 2v2s and putting up, hey, $500 a round or $50 a round or even $5 a round for these wagers to get practice for the tournaments. There are a lot of people, and I say a lot, more than one is a lot of people in particular for this topic, but there is quite a few more than one of people that have not paid their debts. They're either the excuses oftentimes are my PayPal is maxed out or my Cash App isn't working or blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. I want to have a conversation here about our opinions on this, but also just generally how to act like a human adult, right? Even if you're not an adult. If you are saying, I will pay you if this doesn't happen or does happen, and then that thing does or doesn't happen, and you don't pay that person, you should be blacklisted from everything possible until you pay. That is the dumbest. It is the dumbest thing I have ever seen in the gaming community, is people owe 5, 10, 15 different people money, and they're not paying, yet they're allowed to play in tournaments. They're allowed to wager more. What are we doing? That is insane to me.
That kind of thing. I think the whole name and shame game is often utilized in very poor and unnecessary ways. Repeat offenders, because sometimes you're pissed and you forget and someone bumps and you're like, oh crap, sorry, here, and you send it, right? Like, that happens, and I don't think that falls into the same realm of what we're talking about here. If you're a repeat offender, if you're someone who's getting salty about a loss, you're just ignoring it, yes, you absolutely should go onto a name and shame blacklist until you pay your debt.
Simple as that.
First and foremost, guys, let's be clear, whether it's wagering, gambling, anything else, make sure that you can afford to lose what you are wagering. You should not be entering into wagers with people if you cannot promptly pay what you're going to owe if you lose. That is a concept that is very important in the entire rest of your life, for credit cards, for loans, literally for everything.
Sure.
And it is concerning to me that you get a lot of these pretty young folks that are so freewheeling with their money, and they are so casual about owing other people money, because it's a very serious thing, right? Because it goes beyond just the money. It goes into a trust issue. Are you someone who can be trusted? Are you someone that I want to associate with? And I mean, I think to add on to Smixie's tweets, she was talking about the same things that Queen Biddy was tweeting about. Queen Biddy was tweeting and she called out Corrupt. She said, been a week since I played Corrupt and Zam, and Corrupt still hasn't paid me the $200 he owes me. Now, $200 might not be a lot to one person, but for most people, $200 is a nice chunk of change. And if that's what you're owed, hell yeah, I'm going to be a little miffed if someone isn't paying me that. She goes, yesterday, I had people DM me asking if it was him because he owes them money too. This shit is ridiculous. If you're already in debt, why are you still wagering? And that's such a good point. Why are you?
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, you know, the content world isn't isolated with this issue. You brought it up, credit card debt and all this stuff that we don't need to go into, like financial literacy right now, because it is something I'm super passionate about. I mean, I was an economics major, for goodness sake. Like, a business was my life. Still, hey, it still is my life to some degree, right? Like, casting is my main priority and like my main gig, but I also like do business stuff behind the scenes in the gaming world. And I think there is a financial literacy problem that comes with this. Like, there are a lot of children literally in this community. I mean, I'm talking 15, 16-year-olds that are wagering ungodly amounts of money because they've won tournaments or they know they're super good or whatever. But then there's some people that, because they've been in the gaming world since they were a child and no longer are a child, they don't understand some of these concepts and why this is super important, or just don't care. I mean, that's certainly a viable thing. But I think, but before I tell you how to live your life, more than that, it is, hey, if you want to ever have a credible name in this community, you ever want to grow at any level in the competitive community, like, if you start owing people money and not paying them back, you will be forever known as that person that owed a ton of people money and never paid anyone back. I'll shout them out right now from the tournament side. Like, you know, as a caster, if somebody were to like not pay me way over what they owed, like, I would get really mad. I'd probably blast them on the timeline or what have you. But like, even from the tournament admin side, like, I'll use Speedy Possum's name in vain, whatever you want to do. Like, that guy ran a tournament and never paid out the prize pool. No one will ever trust his name again.
Slimy.
It does not matter if he were to pay everybody back now, a year and a half later or whatever it's been. It will never matter. Yeah. It will never matter. He is forever done in this space because he didn't pay people back when he said he would. Period.
And money, like, people, here's the thing. It does not matter actually how much money it is. If you owe someone money, they are within their right to be agitated about not receiving that money. It doesn't matter, oh, it's just $5. Oh, it's just $10. It is money, and money makes people behave in very odd, sometimes not expected ways. Like, you can't joke around the topic of owing money to people, because more often than not, people are going to get very upset about it. And that's why I look at one of these responses actually to Smixie's tweet, and I do not understand it, because this person says it's probably not their fault.
Well, that's
Fair
yeah,
enough.
that's just a
It's
miss.
definitely their fault. Just the situation / circumstance and genetics have put them in, and they don't have enough life
Genetics.
experience yet to mature and change. I think most of us have areas of growth that we consistently neglect to change. Usually suffering is required. There's so much absurdity in that sentence. Like, look, I have things that I need to improve upon. Everyone does. But understanding the basic concept of it being a bad thing, not paying people when you owe them, should not, like, the suffering required. No, other people should not have to suffer for that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Look, and I think you said it right. Like, it doesn't matter the matter of money. It's a matter of, like, is this a person with integrity, right? And if you don't have that kind of rep in the scene yet, and you're trying to grow in the scene, whether from a tournament admin side or a tournament production company even side, if you want credibility in the scene, you want people to trust you, you want people to trust your brand, you want people to trust you as a creator, blah blah blah. Like, you've got to take care of the little things. If you let the little things go to the wayside, you don't pay people back for 180 plus days or whatever it is, when you said you've got a net 30 contract, like, no one will ever trust you to run large events. No one will ever trust you for anything, and your name will always have some sort of, like, mark on it. And so if you want to avoid that, pay people back what you owe, and if you don't have money to wager, don't wager. Simple as that. However, I know it's harder than that because these issues exist outside of the gaming world. But from our side of things, especially in the Warzone community, like, just understand, like, you are putting everything that you are working on at jeopardy because you're not paying people back.
Yeah, and what do you want people to remember? I don't want this person in a tournament because they stiffed me over $50 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Like, people do not, it doesn't matter the amount. People do not forget things like that. And you just have to be so mindful. Just don't cheat people. I feel like we shouldn't have to say this, but don't cheat people, pay your debts, and people will respect you a hell of a lot more if you make sure you're always on time. Like, people really do remember things like that. If you're prompt when you lose or whatever, people remember that and respect that.
Yeah, I am blown away that some of these people are able to continue to compete. Some of them certainly aren't, but there are a few names in the community, which you've already said one, on the podcast, and I'll say another. Like, I had a lot of respect for the guy in the past. Vapulier is an incredible competitor. He owed a crazy amount of money to a lot of people, and has totally and utterly lost all of my respect because of that. I don't care life situations, like, unless something catastrophic happened where you're like, your house was on fire right before you were supposed to pay people. Like, there really isn't
some massively extenuating circumstance.
But there really
but, like,
isn't
the
an excuse.
likelihood of that, it would have had to be some catastrophic level something happening.
Completely lost all of my respect because you're just not paying your debt. Sorry
anymore. You can't.
So anyways, we'll move on from that topic, but I wanted to be clear, especially from the caster perspective, like, how we view people. Not that we dictate whether or not you get into tournaments, although I would say we do have some say. I mean, quite literally, I hand made it possible for somebody in the community to win a crazy amount of money because they clutched up in a big tournament that, I was asked, hey, do you have a recommendation for the event? And I said, yes, this person. It sometimes does go our way. Like, Katie and I and anybody else in the production world are not going to recommend. We're not going to recommend somebody that owes people money. You're just not somebody with integrity. There's no reason for you to be competing. So anyways, let's jump the second topic. Let's go to I actually want to go to the last topic, if you can indulge me, let's go. Katie. Papa Hex, thank you, by the way, for the compliments in the chat. But Papa Hex is a tournament organizer. Speaking of, I'll give him a little bit of some credit. I've worked with him a number of times, from helping him with some production stuff behind the scenes to casting some of his small events. You've had an opportunity to cast one of those, I believe. But kind of newer in the tournament scene from the organizer perspective, not as often buy-in tourney heavy. This is like somebody that says, hey, I'm willing to put up either my own money or company money to promote either my brand or company brand, and put on free tournaments for people to compete in. Does this often. And Hex, when he came to me asking from the behind the scenes perspective of, like, hey, to establish myself in the community, what do you think I need? And I said, you need to immediately become somebody that people can trust and are credible. And I said, the best thing you can do is pay people out nearly immediately, you will set yourself
that's
apart
the best
from it.
feeling. Oh yeah.
And he's really good at that. I mean, he literally pays within 48 hours, sometimes 72 hours. And it's like, oh, my bad, I paid you in 72 hours when, you know, you're not getting paid for like 6 months by some other people. So really cool. He's been great. Does tournaments on the occasion. Has a couple tournaments coming up as well. And I'll shout out Boom TV as well. Boom TV is very, very fast on that as well. But from like an individual side, certainly somebody that I've respected because of this and has gained some credibility because of this and puts up pretty decently sized tourneys. Now, here is the big tweet. Hex tweeted out about this 5K amateur tournament that had a unique design. I've pulled up the tweet on my side. I'm going to get a better job of actually being able to pull up tweets on our main stage like we used to. It's just a little complicated when we have guests. But he said, I want to do a COD Warzone amateur tournament. $5,000 USD. Pretty sizable tournament. But I get to pick your teams and kind of can base them around Katie or just whatever I want. Would people play? This is the classic, like, this isn't in the works. This isn't something I've already built out and I'm just looking for people. This is an idea I have tweet. These always are like these people tweet these out all the time. I've done this 1,000 times. So like, hey, I have this tournament idea. What do you guys think? Right? He tweeted this out and within he had less than 1,000 followers, by the way, on Twitter. And in less than 48 hours, this tweet had over 500 likes and like 20 some odd retweets and an obscene amount of comments. Like we're talking hundreds of comments. And I thought this was interesting. And I know he followed up with like, hey, I want to do a pro one as well, another 5K tourney. So it's 10K involved. That's quite a sizable tourney. But I want to bring this up because if he would have made this tweet, Katie, like 8 months ago, maybe even 6 months ago, even, it would have maybe gotten 100 likes after a week, right? Because we had this tournament supply. We are starved. These Warzone competitors are starved for events to where when somebody says, hey, I got a sizable prize pool you don't have to pay to be in, it explodes right now.
Well, and let's be clear, we don't people might come in and say, but there's all these Twitter tournaments. Don't care. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the official big time 25, 50, 100K, even the 10K tournaments. Those are what we're saying. And I'm not surprised. Like this tweet is July 4th. It's not that long ago, Gojj, and a week ago, to your point, right? That was a month of nothing. We had a busy May, you hit June, absolutely nothing happens. Not a single substantial Warzone tournament. And I'm not surprised to see these people clamoring for 5K, which is something you kind of have to chuckle at, considering in May you're playing for like 100K or whatever it is. You're playing for prize pools where first place is more than the entirety of this prize pool for Hex's tweet. That just 100% what you said. It goes to show the moment people even sniff a prize pool that seems tantalizing, they're clawing at the door to try and get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So cool to see what he's doing, but also that idea was like obscene to me that this tweet is exploding. He gained well over 200 plus followers on it and insane interactions. We're talking like hundreds of thousands of impressions from somebody with a small account because everybody's commenting, retweeting, etc. Right? Just because everybody's so starved for content. And I think going back to what Swish was saying on earlier when she was the guest on the pod was this idea of like, hey, we have to be content creators, right? We have to create content in order for our communities to grow. If this all goes away, which to be honest, competition basically has at this point, like this all goes away, where do you go from here? And there are a lot of big pro, if you can call them pro, Warzone players, right? That their content is competing. And so they will do. I remember. I'll use this as another example. I don't remember if it was Z-Laner or Swagg or whoever, but I was talking to some people behind the scenes. There were some like smaller production companies, smaller tournament admins, and they said, Gojj, I acted as a consultant essentially. What do you think it would take for X streamer to play in our event? And back in the day, even just to get Z-Laner to play, because he was grinding content with Doc, was like, your prize pool better be $25,000. And
there's
now,
definitely a minimum point.
Yeah, and now you're seeing the biggest Warzone content creators and streamers playing in $1,000 tournaments that last for 16 hours. Like, it blows my mind. Like, their sub count is insane. They're making X amount of money per month, but they're playing in a $1,000 prize pool for 16 hours.
It's like a it's something to do mentality.
Exactly.
And that's
it's
a scary mentality. Yeah, that's a scary mentality for them to be in, though, right? It's like, you know, it's not like Warzone 2 is in August. We've got a ways to go before we get there, and I don't think we're going to talk about it today. I would like to talk about it at some point in the future, but it does lead into the question of why this is happening, and again, I think that's something that we'll talk about at a later date. But it's certainly concerning, as you said it right. You get these big creators playing in $1,000 16-hour tournament.
Yep.
You do 6 months ago, they would have laughed.
100%. Well, I'm gonna shout him out, B-Mick in the chat, who works a lot behind the scenes in production. He said it's hard to bring the big prize pools back when you can get the biggest and brightest for $5,000, and that is the truest tweet. This is what I've been saying forever. The value of Warzone events has gone down dramatically because the amount of money you need to put into an event to bring the highest CCVs is crazy. One of the things I always talked about, this is back when I was doing Modern Warzone Weekly with Doug, and then even we talked about in a couple of our very early episodes of Bot Lobby podcast, is what is a main broadcast's value, right? As casters, what value can we bring? And if we can bring some value, do we care? Do production companies / do sponsors care about main broadcast views, or do they more care about the CCVs of all of the players competing? And, a majority, let's say 70% of their care goes towards overall CCVs of the event, aka the co-streams that people call it, for these competitors competing. And so if you can get everyone, the biggest and the brightest, for 5K, besides maybe Swagg still won't play for 5K, but you can get everybody else, your bang for your buck is insane comparatively.
It's essentially artificial scarcity.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Like
let's go economics.
They're doing this because they don't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes that weird dichotomy where, yes, you can get them for this extremely cheap price point, but a 5K tournament, I'm gonna be real with you, a 5K tournament, I don't really
the viewership stakes are so low. 100%.
Like 10K, yeah, I'm paying attention. 5K, okay, that doesn't mean anything to me. And you will never be able to get the impact of a 25K, 50K, 100K tournament. You'll never be able to get the motivation from the players and the high intensity, the high stakes. You cannot recreate that in a 5K tournament. You just can't.
No, I totally agree. It's such a fun conversation for me because I love the business side of things, but it is this idea of hey, we've got Warzone views going down. Everybody's in. I mean, Swish even said it. We're in a holding pattern for Warzone 2, and everyone is. And I think I think one of the things to think about too, from the sponsor side or Activision side or whatever you want to call it, is they're also in the holding pattern for Warzone 2. They can say, hey, we can spend a bunch of marketing dollars now in a game that is not nearly near the top of the category like it used to be, or what if we just save that money and compile that money, the money that we had set aside for the rest of this year, with next year's budget or part of next year's budget, combine that, make it a humongous event right when Warzone 2 drops, when everybody's eyes are back on this title, and we're getting, X times the amount of return that we would if we tried to do 2 separate events for smaller amounts right now. So there is kind of that double-sided coin of everybody is waiting, including the sponsors and Activision and everybody, about when and where to spend their money. So really interesting conversation. I love these styles of conversation about business side of events, and certainly would like to include more of those in the rest. But okay, we have one more topic we're going to discuss. Katie, I know this is a big one, which was tier lists in general. We brought this up with Swish. There was a tier list that recently came out that was an all women's tier list of all the ladies in the scene, and who I can't remember actually who was it. Queen
Biddy tweeted out yesterday late night at almost 11 p.m. Pacific, said, all right, here's the updated female Warzone tier list that Queen Biddy and Selly made together.
Right.
A lot of ladies were asking for it, and remember, it's just an opinion, so if it really upsets you, that's a you problem. I'm not gonna lie, I hate the ending of that. I hate that so much. I mean, she's right in a way, but what a way to just set this off to be aggressive.
Yeah. Since this is the end of our podcast, if this goes horribly wrong, let me see if I can pull it up, because this will be our final topic for
we gotta try and pull
the
it up
episode.
If we can, for
Yes.
sure. Because I'll be like, I'll save it for once it's actually up on screen.
Okay, well, you can start the conversation. What do you, in general, while I'm doing this, what do you think of tier lists in a general sense?
Yeah. I think tier lists are fun. I think they can be overdone very quickly. And it really depends on who's making the tier list, because I know a lot of times certain people make tier lists and it's like, why? You know,
No one cares about your opinions. Is that what you just?
Well,
what do you mean?
Sort of, which is, I guess, at the same level of aggression as Queen Biddy had. So maybe I'm just eating my words. But like,
Sure.
it's the point.
I'm gonna cut off the bottom level.
I guess it's the question: why should I respect certain people's opinions?
Sure.
And sometimes the answer is you don't. I don't need to, because you're not a competitive player, or you're not a caster, or you're not someone who has a deep wealth of information about this. So you're not, you're not a J God or someone else who's in the scene. But then you get tier lists like this one that's up on the screen right now, which is from competitors about competitors. So very much so, the opinions are very much so relevant. My immediate thoughts when I first saw this, there's a few that I raised my eye at, but I actually think it's pretty fair.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad at all. I mean, and there's obviously,
I think it's pretty fair.
There's gonna be some bias. There's gonna be some like, host stuff in particular. Who's grinding content? Who's playing a ton of Warzone? Who's playing a ton of co-eds? Who's playing only women tournaments? I mean, there's a lot of a lot of what ifs in this situation. I don't hate this list.
There's a couple that I'm definitely like.
Do you want to? You want to shout out?
I don't. No. Just suffice to say, there's a few that I'm like, I think. Well, how about this? There's a few that I think could be moved up or down by like one.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
There's really only one person that I'm like, I don't know why you're there at all. Only one person. But the rest of them, I do feel like it is pretty fair to both their skill level and their accomplishments.
Yeah, no, and I like I actually like most of these tiers too, because the F tier, or don't know play more tier, is also filled with people that are like well known. It's not on your screen right now because of sizing issues, but like down on that list of like 5x5 is on the list of play more, because she grinds content. Her stream is popping. She's killing it. She is very talented, and when she plays tournaments, like she will win money. But it's like comparatively to the rest of this list, these ladies are constantly grinding tournaments. I mean, let's use Smixy for an example. Like obviously a friend, we can call her a friend of ours. Somebody that we talk to fairly often. She's constantly playing tournaments, and so it's very easy to rank where she would line up in this list. Whereas somebody like 5x5, you're like, oh, I know she's super talented, but I haven't seen her play a ton of like women-only tournaments or co-ed tournaments, or just tournaments in general. But Kins being S tier makes so much sense in the world. Like she's winning everything. Hey Lovely was winning a ton back when she was playing super consistently, doing up with C-Smith, or even just by herself, playing any of the women's trios events, etc. It's fun. It's fun to do tier lists, and I want to finish this conversation, Katie. Do you think player tier lists are the best way to do it, or do you think a third-party tier list makes the most sense? Third party meaning people that watch a crazy amount of Warzone, people like you and I doing tier lists as casters, where we gotta have an unbiased perspective. It's just what we see from the big tournament scene. Our bias comes from, we don't watch Twitter tournaments, we watch the big tournaments and who's performing. But do you like the idea of players ranking other players?
I don't really have an opinion on it so much. I think it's always going to stir the pot more, because it's like, find me a competitor who's making a tier list and doesn't put themselves in S tier, right? Like, for example, Biddy and Selly made this, and they're both in S tier.
Sure.
And I don't have opinion on that either way. That's not what I'm commenting on. But the point is that if competitors are making tier lists about other competitors, it's inherently going to have some very real bias to it. So I don't have an issue with them. I think it starts conversation. Anything that gives us Shitters Digest content, I'm super here for it. So keep pumping these out. Like, let me know. Give me some really spicy ones, you know? But to your question, I do believe if people wanted actual tier lists, then yes, you're going to have to go to the as unbiased as possible, because everyone has biases, right? Let's be clear. But casters doing it, for example, you and I doing it, is inherently going to be less biased than competitors doing it, not other competitors, because we are the ones who sit back and watch your gameplay. We don't make or lose money based on your gameplay. We don't care about who wins or loses. Sometimes there's storylines or things we want to see happen for sure, and that is where some of that bias can come in. But for the most part, we just get to sit back and watch the great plays, the mediocre plays, and the bad plays. And that gives us the insight that might be a bit more clouded if it's people rating the people that they play against or with every day.
Yeah, I would say last note I have on tier list, that we can close this thing out. I'm not kind of just touting myself here, but I will say, when you do a tier list, if you really want to drive impressions and stuff, that's fantastic. But I think the best way to do a tier list is set the expectations at the very beginning. Not just, oh, this is for fun, this is my opinion, blah, blah, blah. No, more than that. This tier list is based off of X, Y, and Z. This tier list is based off of customs only. This tier list is based off of big tournaments only. This tier list is based on pub slaying only. Those are all very, very different, and there are people that perform better in certain circumstances, right? So, for instance, I'm going to shout one person out on this tier list. Sunday wins games. Sunday, she was in the Combat Cup that I just casted. They won out of the 7 rebirth games that was played. Sunday's team won 4 of them. She wins, but she didn't win any money in the tournament because they weren't putting up enough eliminations. And so there's this kind of, depending on the format, certain people are better in certain circumstances. Some people play a better support role in customs than they can in 2v2 pub slaying. And so the list can dramatically change based on the criteria. And I think it's important to put that out if you really wanted to have like the most fair list. But again, it doesn't really matter.
Naturally, and we're seeing it in chat, Gojj, naturally, we have to do a live episode where we do a tier list, right?
I mean, sure, we could do one. I with the current state of Warzone competitive, we'll. What
could go wrong? What could go wrong?
Yeah, you're right. Nothing could go wrong because we are perfect. We'll do some thinking about some of the tier lists we want to do. I know we've got some exciting ones behind the scenes, but look, this episode's been long. It's been amazing. This has been fantastic. Thank you guys so much for the support all through the entire podcast. And again, huge shout out to Swish. She was a pleasure to have on. One of the easiest guests we've had in terms of just general conversations. She's amazing. She was able to tell her story, and I loved hearing it. And a huge credit to her goes to the grind that she's had. Put in a lot of work and has gotten to the place she's at because of that work. So shout out to Swish. But Katie, any final words? Of course, you can shout out socials, where people can find you, all that good stuff. But anything coming up, exciting things you're working on, or pretty sleepy right now?
Got some stuff toward the end of the month that I'm excited about. Can't say too much about it yet because dates aren't finalized. But other than that, Worlds Bedford, Instagram and Twitter. Katie Bedford on Twitch. Appreciate you all and much love.
I think that's all I've got as well. Grandmaster Gojj, all major socials. Super excited about a few events coming up. Again, I can't announce them either. I think I've got a PUBG event coming next week, if I remember correctly. But other than that, we've got some pretty fun stuff planned into August. I think Katie and I will finally get back in the booth together soon. It's been way too long, Katie. I mean, it has been obscene amounts of time. But regardless, that's all we've got. Grandmaster Gojj on all major socials, Bot Lobby Podcast. If you're somehow still listening to this, make sure you like, follow, comment, all of that good stuff on the YouTube VOD. And thank you to all of our audio listeners as well. I hope you have a great day at work. That's it for us. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.